Rick Dicker is in an interrogation with Tony Reidinger. The boy is confused and tells about an incident that occurred with a girl from his school. At the end of class, after inviting Violet to go to the movies next weekend, a strange thing happened in the school parking lot. A supervillain suddenly appeared and Tony was almost crushed. While hiding from the Underminer, a group of superheroes appeared. In that instant, he saw a chance to escape from that place, but decided to look back after hearing a familiar voice. Then the boy saw a girl angry that she had been left to take care of the baby while the rest of the group was fighting the enemy. Angry, the young woman threw her mask on the floor and Tony discovered that this was Violet, the girl in his class that he was in love with. When she realizes that her cover has been blown, the girl tries to justify herself, but the boy was terrified and ran away. Rick asks if Tony has told anyone else about this incident, and Tony says that he hasn't had the courage to talk about it with other people yet. The man then uses a machine to make the young man forget that episode. When Tony left, the battle against the Underminer continued and the Incredible family went through serious problems. They were unable to stop the villain from destroying part of the city and taking all the money that was stored in the bank vault. Mr. Incredible was sucked in with all the money and allowed the Underminer to escape. To make matters worse, the giant excavator has been activated. The machine starts to drive itself through the city and destroys a bridge, but Frozone shows up in time to save the train. Bob asks his wife's help to stop that thing while he keeps it away from the buildings. Meanwhile, Dash is busy trying to keep the residents safe. The boy has just saved an old lady when Violet shows up and hands Jack over to him. The young heroine also wants to take the opportunity to use her powers and save the city, so babysitting is not part of her plans. Mr. Incredible continues to look for a way to stop the machine while Elastigirl prevents new victims from being made after the destruction of the overpass. Dash passes Jack to his father and Bob gives the boy back to Violet. Seeing today's greatest superheroes passing by his side during a mission, Winston is overjoyed and orders his driver to follow them. With the help of her husband, Elastigirl manages to knock out the boiler and stop the machine. Just then, Violet and her brothers appear, and the girl uses her shield to protect her family from the explosion. When it's all over, police cars show up and Frozone escapes. The Incredible family is taken away by the cops, because the superhero's activity is illegal. Mr. Winston's driver finally manages to find Frozone and offers him the opportunity to legalize the superhero profession. At the police station, Helen and Bob are interrogated and accused of causing even greater damage to the city, as well as failing to capture the Underminer. According to the policeman, if the heroes had not meddled in the situation, less damage would have occurred. The couple would have been arrested if not for Rick's intervention. The family was homeless because their home was destroyed by a missile during a previous mission. Therefore, they need to stay in a hotel. During the journey, Violet reveals that her friend saw her without a mask, and Bob asks Rick for help to solve this problem. This is how Tony's memory was erased. Before he leaves, Rick informs them that the politicians have terminated the superhero protection program and the most he could do for them is to offer 2 more weeks' stay at that hotel. The friends say goodbye and the family gathers for dinner. They discuss the mistakes they made that day and Violet says that it is unfair to have to stay with Jack while her parents do the fun part. Helen says that from that day on, their missions as superheroes came to an end, but Bob doesn't agree with this. He loves the fact that he has superpowers and uses them to help people, even if the law forbids it. When the children go to bed, the couple gathers at the edge of the pool to plan what they will do from then on, and the only solution they find is to go back to their old life. Bob will go back to work at his boring job while Helen will stay at home taking care of the children. During the conversation, the couple hears a noise and soon gets ready for the fight. Then Lucius appears and tells them about the proposal he received. The trio has been summoned to the mansion of Winston DeVore, a millionaire who wants to help them legalize the superhero profession. Lucius states that he is going there at that moment and Bob is excited by the news, but Helen is suspicious. They arrange to meet at the mansion and Lucius advises his friends to wear their old uniforms, because Winston is a nostalgic guy. Seeing her parents leaving with uniforms under their jackets, Violet soon realizes that something is wrong. When the trio arrives at the mansion, Winston shows up to greet them and introduces himself as a big fan. Then his sister, Evelyn DeVore, arrives and the millionaire reveals why he wants to help restore the good reputation of superheroes. He says that his father donated a good part of his money to support the heroes' cause and, because of this, he got to know several of them. The man installed a telephone in his house to call for help if something happened. One day, bandits broke into the mansion and his father called the superheroes, but no one answered because the heroes had become illegal. The bandits saw the man making the call and shot him. Months later, Mrs. DeVore died of grief due to bereavement. Winston blames his father's death on the state, which forced the heroes into hiding and therefore were not there to protect him. However, Evelyn believes that her parents could have gone to the secret room instead of waiting for help. According to her, if this had happened, her father would not have died. Winston disagrees with his sister, yet together they have managed to turn his father's old company, DevTech, into the largest telecom company in the world. Evelyn handles the creation of new products and inventions, while Winston is in charge of sales. The man takes the superheroes into the boardroom and states that the best way to make them well regarded by society is to make a change in their perspective. The idea is to show people the practical side of the whole process from chasing to catching the bad guys. To do this, the heroes will need to wear micro cameras on their uniforms, which were developed by Evelyn and, despite their diminutive size, produce high-quality images. Upon hearing this idea, Mr. Incredible feels excited and says he is ready to start. However, Winston gives him some news that does not please him. To execute the first mission, he believes that Elastigirl is the best option. The man came to this conclusion after his sister calculated the cost-benefit of the last 5 years, before the superheroes were forced into hiding, and the data from Elastigirl proves that she did much less damage on her missions compared to Mr. Incredible and Frozone. After the release made with the superheroine, Winston hopes that the government will legalize the activity of heroes, and then everyone will be able to work together again. Bob is outraged that he was not chosen for the first mission, because he believes he is the greatest hero today, but in the end, he must swallow his ego and follow the businessman's plan. The problem is that Helen doesn't know whether to accept this proposal, since her priority is to protect her children. However, her husband manages to convince her to join the mission by reminding her that children have superpowers, and if superheroes are legalized, they will have the option to practice this profession one day. The next morning, Winston sends the entire Incredible family to one of his houses until they can find a home to live in. Upon entering the mansion, the group is impressed and Dash runs all over to see the place. The boy finds a remote control and discovers that the house is fully automated, but the situation gets out of control when furniture starts falling into the pool. After cleaning up the mess, Helen tries on her new uniform, provided by the company DevTech. Although she does not approve of the new outfit, she decides to wear it for the time being. In the garage, the woman finds her famous stretchy motorcycle, only much more modern and up-to-date. Since she is out of practice, she finds it difficult to ride it, but she believes she will soon get the hang of it. While riding the bike through the streets, the heroine is happy to see that she still has many fans spread around the world. Minutes later, she arrives at the airport and boards the plane that will take her on her first mission. Winston accompanies the woman to the neighboring town, which is known for its high crime rate. Meanwhile, Bob is at home in his new role as caretaker of the children. After breakfast, Violet and Dash leave for school and the man will have to take care of Jack all day. Elastigirl is in an alley in New Urbam listening to the police radio. When she receives a call, she immediately rushes to the scene. The mayor is inaugurating a new train, but as soon as he starts it, the vehicle begins to move backwards and Helen realizes that something is wrong. There is only 40 kilometers of track available and the train is already traveling at 160 kilometers per hour. Therefore, the heroine must run to stop the train in time. Elastigirl uses her motorcycle to ride under the buildings to catch up with the train. However, when she is about to go through a narrow tunnel, she must get rid of the vehicle and come up with a quick plan to stop the train. She tries to wake up the driver, but the man is hypnotized. Therefore, the only option is to release the wagons and use her body as a parachute to slow down. Her plan works and the train manages to stop before it falls off the cliff. When she gets into the car and goes to talk to the driver, the woman realizes that this was a direct attack and a new villain has emerged to harm the city. After school, Violet gets ready to go to the movies with Tony and is excited for their first date. When he finally gets Jack to sleep, Bob sits down in front of the TV to rest, but Dash shows up asking for help with his math homework. Bob tries to help him study, but realizes that he has forgotten how to do some equations, since it has been many years since he graduated from school. The boy says that he prefers to wait for his mother to return to teach him, and this makes Bob even angrier, because he doesn't accept that Helen is better than him at everything. Suddenly, he hears a noise coming from the TV and realizes that Jack is already awake. The hero is so tired that he dozes off while telling a story to get him to sleep again. Minutes later, Bob puts his son in his crib and uses a table to make sure he doesn't get out of there. As he walks to his room, he realizes that Violet didn't go to her date and asks what happened, but the girl refuses to talk about it. Minutes later, Jack returns to the living room and turns on the TV. Bob is exhausted and ends up sleeping on the couch next to his son. The baby is watching a police program, and when he sees a raccoon going through the garbage outside the house, he mistakes him for a burglar. The child uses his powers to go through the glass of the door, and then closes the trash can through telekinesis. The animal becomes enraged and they begin to fight. Jack throws the raccoon away and he ends up trapped in a chair. His body goes up in flames and the boy sets everything around him on fire. Luckily, the raccoon manages to get loose before it becomes barbecue and Jack attacks him with his laser beam and the raccoon jumps on top of him. At this time, Bob wakes up with the noise and tries to break up the fight. The boy then multiplies and goes up against his opponent. The raccoon manages to escape and Bob tries to recover all the copies of his son. He is still scared, but is happy to discover that his youngest also has superpowers. Minutes later, he receives a call from Helen. The woman tells him about her mission and how she managed to save hundreds of people all by herself. Upon hearing this, Bob feels happy for his wife, but is disappointed with his own performance as a father. After taking Dash and Jack to their room, he goes to bed, but cannot sleep. The man is bothered by the fact that he doesn't know math and spends the night studying to teach his son. The next morning, he wakes up Dash and helps him with his lesson before the boy goes to school. That day, Violet goes to talk to Tony and asks if the boy has forgotten the movies. At this point, the young woman realizes that he doesn't know what she is talking about and claims that he doesn't even know her. On the local news TV set, Elastigirl meets with Ambassador Selleck. The woman is excited to meet the heroine and says she is happy to have her back. Minutes later, Chad begins a live interview with Helen. However, something bizarre happens and the presenter starts to say strange things. Elastigirl soon realizes that this is another attack of the Screenslaver, who controls people through screens. He uses Chad to inform her that he is controlling the ambassador's helicopter and the heroine rushes over to save her. When she enters the aircraft, she destroys all the monitors and the pilots regain consciousness. Helen takes control of the ship and knocks the employees into the water, while trying to make a forced landing. The Screenslaver sends another aircraft to attack her, and Helen has to jump in with the ambassador, since the woman can't swim. When they are finally safe, Selleck faints. The next day, Violet is furious. During breakfast she reveals that, after discovering her secret identity, Tony has started to ignore her and is pretending not to know her. At that moment, her father tells her that he has asked Rick to erase the young man's memory and thus preserve the family secret. Upon hearing this, Violet is furious and locks herself in her room. When she arrives at Winston's office, Helen discovers that all her efforts to restore the image of superheroes are working and she has already secured the support of the ambassador. However, the woman cannot feel joyful about this news, since the Screenslaver is still on the loose and may hurt more people. To try to calm her down, Winston shows her the new heroes he has recruited and Void is the first to introduce herself. The woman has the ability to open portals and is a big fan of Elastigirl. Over the next few hours, Helen meets all of her new coworkers. Later, while talking to Evelyn, the heroine manages to come up with a plan to catch the Screenslaver and asks her new friend to help her in the execution. Meanwhile, Bob calls Rick and asks for his help in bringing Violet and Tony together again. The man then informs him that the boy works as a part-time waiter at his parents' restaurant, Happy Platter. The next day, Bob takes his children to lunch at this restaurant and Violet is startled when she is served by Tony. The girl chokes on her glass of water. Ashamed, she covers her face and makes an excuse to go to the bathroom. While talking to Chad during a phone interview, Helen uses a device developed by Evelyn to track the Screenslaver. The heroine follows the signal and scales the buildings until she finds the enemy's hiding place. Elastigirl slips her hand under the door and unlocks all the locks. When she enters the apartment, Helen begins to investigate, and suddenly a man appears behind her. The walls begin to reflect like monitors, and the heroine must close her eyes while fighting the enemy in order not to be hypnotized. The villain uses a stun gun to neutralize her and then flees, but Elastigirl goes after him. The Screenslaver activates the fire alarm, luring people out of their homes. This serves as a distraction so that he can escape. However, in the end, the situation does not turn out as expected and the Screenslaver is captured. When he removes his mask, Helen discovers that this guy is a pizza delivery man who doesn't even know why he is being taken by the police. While watching TV, Bob sees his car being auctioned off. The superhero thought his car was wrecked and beyond repair, but apparently he has been deceived. Dissatisfied, he goes for his remote control and starts the vehicle from a distance. Then, Dash takes the device and activates the rocket launcher. However, Bob doesn't want to cause any kind of trouble while his wife is away, so he turns off the car and abandons the idea of recovering the vehicle. Jack is on his lap when he takes off flying because of a sneeze and ends up in Violet's room. The girl runs away scared when she sees a little pink monster chasing her. The youngsters discover that their younger brother also has superpowers. They begin to interrogate their father and Bob freaks out. He is completely exhausted and doesn't know how to deal with so many things to deal with at the same time. Jack's second sneeze sends him out of the house. The child goes through the ceiling and falls into the pool, but Mr. Incredible is there to rescue him. Worried about her father, Violet decides to call Lucius. When he goes to visit the family, Jack discovers a new power and begins to teleport around the house. Bob then uses a cookie as bait to lure the baby. When Jack finishes eating, his father refuses to give him any more cookies, and the boy turns into a little demon. Faced with this bizarre situation, Lucius has the idea of giving Jack ice balls to eat while helping his friend think of a solution. That same day, Bob takes the boy to Edna's house. She is furious because Elastigirl is no longer wearing the super costume that the designer designed. Still, Edna agrees to receive Bob, and upon discovering that Jack has superpowers, says she will make a special uniform for him. Seeing a sample of the boy's superpowers, Edna asks Bob to leave the boy with her that night and promises that everything will be ready the next morning. Meanwhile, Winston is throwing a super party at his mansion to celebrate the return of the superheroes. The millionaire reports that leaders from over 100 countries will meet on his ship that week to sign a treaty and bring the heroes back into the legality. After her acceptance speech, Helen notices something strange on the monitor. She goes searching through her micro-camera recordings and finds an image that makes her doubt that she got the right guy. Evelyn arrives shortly thereafter, and Elastigirl shows that one of the screenslaver's monitors is tuned to the camera on her costume. After investigating the mask, she finds a pair of glasses and soon realizes that they were being used to control the pizza delivery man. Realizing that she has been discovered, Evelyn pushes the glasses onto Helen's face and begins the next phase of her plan. The next day, Violet brings coffee to her father, who has just awakened from a 17-hour sleep. Now that he is refreshed, he picks up his son from Edna's house, and the woman teaches him how to use the new suit to contain the child's superpowers through a small device. When Helen regains consciousness, she is trapped in a chair in a chamber surrounded by ice. The woman tries to reach out to remove her glasses, but Evelyn advises her not to, as her bones could end up breaking. Winston knows absolutely nothing about his sister's diabolical plan and has no idea that it was she who created the screenslaver. Evelyn's idea is to use this technology to destroy once and for all people's trust in superheroes, as revenge for the death of her father, who relied on the heroes to save him. In the backyard of the new house, Bob teaches his children how to use the device that Edna has invented to keep Jack from getting out of control. Just then, he receives a call from Evelyn, who gives Mr. Incredible the news that Helen is in danger. Immediately, the man asks Lucius to go stay with the children while he puts on his suit and goes to the DevTech ship. While rummaging through her father's things for information, Dash finds the car remote control and Violet grabs her uniform to go after her parents. Minutes later, a group of hypnotized superheroes appear at the door, and Frozone arrives shortly thereafter. The man tries to get rid of them while Dash starts his father's vehicle. Under Evelyn's control, the heroes break into the house and try to capture the children. Frozone is the first to be caught and the youngsters end up being cornered. However, Mr. Incredible's car arrives just in time and serves as a distraction so that the youngsters can escape. Lucius is eventually captured and, after putting on the glasses, is also controlled by Evelyn. When Bob finds his wife, the woman attacks him and, during the fight, manages to put the glasses on him. Now, with most of the superheroes under her command, Evelyn can complete her mission. After escaping from the mansion, Violet and Dash realize that the superheroes were being controlled and decide to go after their parents, as they believe they are in trouble. Following the boy's voice command, the vehicle transforms into a boat and takes the trio directly to the ship. Winston welcomes the guests and begins the ceremony. Violet asks her brother to watch Jack while she uses her invisibility to look for her parents. Minutes later, the baby disappears and Dash has to come out of hiding to look for him. Violet accidentally knocks over a potted plant and is seen by Void. They get into a fight and the woman almost manages to get her control glasses on the girl. However, Violet knocks her down and manages to get rid of her. When the brothers meet, they use the device to track the youngest and discover that Jack is in an elevator. Evelyn sends Elastigirl and Mr. Incredible to the guest room, and Winston invites Ambassador Selleck to be the first to sign the International Heroes Agreement. When Violet finds Jack, the boy is on fire and she uses the device to put out the fire. One of the superheroes hears the noise and goes after them. Crusoe uses his powers to capture the three brothers, but Jack turns into a giant baby and manages to knock them out. The child breaks his control device and runs off across the ship. Desperate, his brothers try to get him back before something bad happens. The signing of the international agreement is being broadcast all over the world and Evelyn uses this opportunity to tarnish the hero's reputation. Elastigirl makes a bizarre speech against humanity and then the broadcast is interrupted. Everyone is frightened by those words, but the worst is yet to come. The trio goes to the control room and takes over the ship. They divert the ship's course toward the city, and Mr. Incredible destroys the control panels so that no one can change the course. Unexpectedly, Jack appears in the room and uses his telekinesis powers to remove his mother's control glasses. Now that Helen is free, she manages to free Lucius and Bob. The superheroes need to find a way to stop that ship, and Violet gives the old costume to her mother. Suddenly, other superheroes invade the room and Elastigirl discovers that her baby has superpowers. Gradually, the team manages to remove the glasses from their colleagues and free them from Evelyn's control. While all the guests are falling victim to the hypnosis, Evelyn catches her brother and intends to run away with him. Then, Winston soon realizes that his sister is up to something wrong. He decides to return to the ship while the woman flees in her jet. Helen runs to stop her and Bob tries to shut down the ship's engines, but is stopped when the crew shower manages to trap him between the pipes. Mr. Incredible then stands up, and frees the last superhero who was still under Evelyn's control. With the help of Void's portals, Helen manages to get on the jet and tries to reach the control cabin. When Elastigirl enters the room, Evelyn cuts off the oxygen flow and Helen uses a flare to shoot the woman. With the glass broken, oxygen enters the ship and the heroine returns to save Evelyn. Since the ship's command has been destroyed, Violet has the idea to change the ship's course manually and divert it to the opposite side of the city. After attaching himself in the anchor chains, Bob jumps into the water. The man asks Dash to push the button and pull him back in when he manages to turn the boat around. Winston destroys the screen that was being used to hypnotize the guests and orders everyone to go to the stern of the ship. Dash pulls his father back, but the ship continues to move at high speed. The ship invades the city, but Frozone freezes the ocean and manages to stop it before major damage is done. As a thank you for saving the town, the judge declares the hero's activity legal. When she returns to school, Violet tries to get closer to Tony again. Weeks later, the couple meets for a movie and Violet introduces the boy to her entire family. When they arrive in front of the establishment, the heroes realize that a robbery is taking place. Then Violet asks Tony to save room for her and says that she will be back before the trailers run out. Bob's car transforms, and in that instant, the Incredible family prepares to save the town once again, the difference being that now they are acting within the law.